5:30, and a few people have predicted we're going to stay at 6:30. 6:30. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It is 6:30, and this is July 9th City Council meeting. At this time, please silence all electronic devices. Amy, would you please call the roll?
Jamie Kane.
Here.
Mark Carmen.
Here.
Kevin Fleetwood. Rodney King.
Here.
Diana McKenzie. Here. Daryl Poling.
Here.
And Gerald Tressler.
Here.
You all should have received a copy of the minutes from June 11, 2024. If there are no edits, additions, or corrections, those will stand as presented. Hearing and seeing none, that will be so. Old business, Zach Beard, Director of Public Projects, has ordinance 24-11 and 12 that kind of go together. So good evening, Zach.
Good evening, Council. 2024-11 ordinance is for the parking chapter, which we discussed last month and passed on that reading. As a refresher, that is one, tying in our fees to the no parking chapter in the ordinance, and then also raising the fee, not free, from $10 to $25. So I don't think we had any changes to that ordinance, and I would leave the rest up to you.
Zach, speak up. The microphone's not picking you up.
Got it.
Thank you.
2024-11 is amending the parking chapter, tie it together, change the fee.
Correct.
It doesn't actually have any effect on parking.
Correct.
Okay. Your recommendation for 24-12, before we get there, is going to be?
Table it until the next month.
Okay. But these two, since the 12 is the actual restrictions, 11 is not. If the council is willing, we can pass 24-11 on second reading. That will change the code component. It will not affect the actual parking conversation. Or we can table it as well. Doesn't matter.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Did somebody over here have a differing opinion?
I'll second.
Was there anybody here to talk about that motion or that piece?
I don't believe so. It just says parking. So I suspect that their comments are related probably more to 12 than they are to 11, because I suspect that they're related to specific parking on a specific street. And 12 is really where we make amendments to either that schedule or that table that's found in the ordinances. And I would suspect that the basis of Zach's suggestion that we table 12 is that in looking at it and getting public comment, we found that there's other areas that we might want to look at. So rather than do it piecemeal, we look at it at once and see what needs to be updated or changed. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm just guessing.
Yes, so upon Vieta's question last month on is everywhere signed that is in the table, we started looking at it more and realized that there's some stuff in the table that was passed a long time ago. Specifically, there are state roads listed in the table that should not be listed in the table. So we just want to take another month to regroup that entire table, make sure it fits what we want it to fit, and then propose it back to you.
So I would say at this time, procedurally, you have a motion and a second. So you probably need to call that, and then we can ask these folks if they want to speak.
Yeah, so James or Christina, are you either of you here to talk about that, or are you here to talk about the streets in particular?
Streets in particular.
Okay. James, is that the same for you?
Streets.
Okay, perfect. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of passing 2024-11 on second reading, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, perfect. Now, let's talk about 24-12.
So 2024-12 is the ordinance to add West Trimble Street, West Meyer Lane, West Cole Drive, North Neiman Drive, and North Oakmont Avenue to our no parking schedule, to add parking restrictions on either the west or east side of those streets or north-south side of those streets. As as discussed last month, we received complaints of cars parked on the streets. Basically, those 5 streets in particular are narrower streets than most city streets. So therefore, when you start putting cars on both sides of the streets, even if they are offset, hopefully as much as possible, it does create passing blocks almost, to where cars are getting to where they can't pass through the streets. Garbage trucks are getting to where they're having difficulty getting through the streets. And ultimately, our main concern is the safety aspect of, hopefully you don't need to, but fire apparatus, emergency vehicles are gonna have issues getting through the streets if there are cars parked on both sides. And so that is what this parking ordinance is trying to eliminate, that safety concern.
So refresh my memory, are you gonna eliminate it on both sides or on one side of each of those streets?
Just one side of each of those streets.
And how are you determining which side of the street you're going to
It is
use?
determined by which side the mailboxes are on.
Okay.
It's allowed opposite of the mailboxes, right?
Correct, yes.
Are there any other questions for Zach before we hear from James and Christine?
You need a motion to table that?
No, we're just gonna roll into the public comments.
Krista Dixon?
I have lived at my address on North Demon Drive since 2006. We have never had an issue until just recently, when there were cars parked on both sides of the street. It also happened to be on a trash and recycle day. Also that day, we had a community neighborhood garage sale. But until that time, we've never had an issue with cars parking on the streets. On the east side of the street are where the fire hydrants are. The mailboxes are on the west side of the street. But like I said, I've been there since 2006, so almost 20 years. And we've never had any issues. And I just wonder now, why all of a sudden are we having issues? Because like I said, we've never had an issue ever. When I've taken videos for the past month since I received the letter, there have been no parking on either side of the street. So like I said, I think the issue was just boiled down to a community garage sale in my neighborhood on that street where cars were parked along both sides of the street.
Thank you.
James Stewart.
Well, I live on Trimble Street, and I'm all in favor of the parking on one side. On the north side, there's a wrecker. One of the neighbors works for TDS, and that wrecker takes up a lot of space. He parks on the north side where his house is, but so definitely keeping the mailbox side open. But even that gets difficult with something that huge in there. It may have been different before that area was Rolling Meadows was developed, but now that it is, it's really difficult to get down any of those streets, Cole and Meyer and all the east-west. And so I'm highly in favor of this whole thing being resolved, because Greensburg already has several streets that are done that way. You just don't have any choice. And, you know, like the heavy limbs and so forth, that truck with the big hopper on the back of it that picks up that kind of stuff, it was there like 2 weeks ago, and I watched it have a hell of a time trying to maneuver down the street. I thought he was gonna hit something. School bus has been the same way. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. So I really think you ought to get this thing passed, and whether people like it or not, it's a safety issue. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So council, we are, Mark's unable to be with us this evening, but he did relay, and I think Zach did a little bit too, we're still going through and confirming the other streets that was brought up last month about, does the table actually match the real world. So we are still reviewing that. Mark has ordered additional signs, but those have been back ordered. So there isn't really a pressure component right now. And so I would, per Zach's recommendation, I would recommend that we table this. We will keep the comments in mind as we move forward until next month so that we can review the rest of those streets for conformity. Any other questions on that? Or okay, would entertain a motion to table 2024-12.
Motion.
Motion to table's been made by Daryl, seconded by Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Perfect, thanks. Okay, there was a little bit of a scheduling snafu, so the Veritas Group's not able to be with us this evening. I have just a quick update from them as well. So a couple items, if you've been by in the last week or so, it continues to take shape out there. There is a lot of work that's happening on the inside. The punch list walkthrough was completed last Tuesday. Those items continue to be checked off for mostly the fire department. We are still waiting on fire alarm testing for the street department. Hopefully all of that will be done by Friday. Mark Helmick has been doing daily visits, walkthroughs in conjunction with Sarah to get a temporary certificate of occupancy this coming Friday. That allows us to move into the next phase of the paperwork, but we'll continue to work on finishing up the punch list item. Two of the biggest outstanding things is one, you'll notice that we're still missing the fascia from the fire station building. That is supposed, according to them, that is supposed to be installed yet this week. So we'll see if that happens. But that's a big step in the right direction on the outside. That's one of the last major visual components. There's also some awnings that are still missing. On the inside, last month there was a lengthy discussion from Meyer Nation about the elevator. The elevator is in, but it is missing pieces that were not sent along with it. The issue now is that it's, according to their last update, that the missing electrical will be shipped on July 22nd. It is not required that the elevator work for our occupation of the building, but it is, it does have some things to do with furniture delivery and etc. So we will continue to keep an eye on that. I don't know when we're going to get an open house scheduled. August is rapidly approaching. We want to be sure that it's done. We want to be sure it's safe. We want to be sure it's accessible to everyone who wants to come and visit. I would anticipate sometime this fall. Zach had a comment earlier. He said, I just would never admit to that. So we will be sure that everyone has plenty of notice. We want to be sure people have time to get it on their calendars, but we want to be sure it's done first. So that is sort of the update from there. Any questions? Okay, perfect. The teams continue to make progress, which is great. Erin, yeah, she's here this evening with Lifetime Resources. This is our area agency on aging.
Yes.
They do a lot of good work in our community each year, so she wanted to come by and give us an update. So good evening.
Yes, thank you. Like you said, I'm Erin Thomas. I'm the Executive Director at Lifetime Resources. You should have received a packet with a letter. And I apologize. While we are the area agency on aging, you actually have Thrive Alliance here in Decatur County, which provides the bulk of the services that we provide as the area agency on aging. But the one service that we have extended into Decatur County beyond our sort of core 5 county service area as an area agency on aging is public transportation, catch a ride. And so we are under a grant called the Section 5311 grant, which provides the bulk of the funding for the program, but it is a program that requires 100% match. And so we're very fortunate that you all have, provided funding and supported us for many, many years. And that funding has been sort of stagnant at about $5,000 per year for a number of years. But as you can imagine, the cost of insurance and fuel and maintenance and all those different types of things has increased over time. So I am here to ask for your consideration for an increase in funding. Over the last few years, the reason we've been able to sort of survive as is because we've had additional funding that has come in because of COVID, and some of that has sort of trickled over year to year. But as we move into next year, we're not gonna have that funding, sort of cushion to be able to rely on. So I am here to request 10,000. And like I said, that is specifically for Catch a Ride, because that is the one service that we offer here in York County. The rest of the area agency on aging services are offered by Thrive Alliance. So Catch a Ride, like I said, is public transportation. It's available to anyone for any purpose, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we are taking people to grocery stores, dialysis treatments, doctor's appointments, to visit a friend, to go, it's available for absolutely any purpose. And we take reservations up to 30 days in advance. And the reason that we do that is because, people who need to get to a medical appointment or something like that, we really encourage them to get on our schedule as early as possible, because the earlier they call, the more availability that we have. It's not that if they call us same day, we wouldn't consider picking them up. It's just that we get busier and busier and busier as it gets closer to the actual day of service. And we do charge a fare, and our standard fare at the moment is $3 for the first 5 miles. And our goal is really to try to keep, our fares at an affordable rate, because those who tend to use our services are people on a fixed income. It's older adults, it's people with disabilities, it's low income. And so we're doing our best to keep our fares as low as possible. Once you get beyond that 5 miles, it's an additional 25 cents per mile. Other sources of match that we're bringing in, there is a state public mass transportation fund that provides a portion of the match. And then we also have contracts with the local shelter workshop, for example, DSI. We have contracts with every brokerage service out there for anyone who has Medicaid or managed care or Medicare that will cover their transportation. So that means that there's no out of cost to the individual, but then we're bringing in, roughly $20 per trip, say, as opposed to that cash fare. And so we're just looking to, the city for consideration to help us make up the difference in the match needs that we have.
Question.
Yes.
You want 10,000, right?
Yeah.
Rodney,
Correct.
Rodney, if you could be sure.
Correct.
You want the 10,000.
Correct.
We've used your services 125 times this past year, correct? From the paperwork?
No, we've provided it was about 7,200 trips that we provided in the county in 2023. That's 125 clients, individuals served.
That's clients.
Individuals served. So they could have taken a lot of them are users of the system multiple times. And I will say our ridership has been down since COVID, and we actually just last week received a grant from the Bethany Legacy Foundation in Madison that we hope will be beneficial across the board. But we're trying to get the message out there, help people understand what our system is, how to use it, effectively, dispel some myths, things like that, and to try to help get that ridership back up.
Okay, let me change directions here.
Sure.
More positively. What are you doing to let the people of Greensburg, Decatur County know that you have these services?
Yeah, and so we actually are in the process of developing a PR campaign. And so we're in the process, in that process we'll be updating our brochures, possibly even elements of our website. We're going to be doing a video to try to help people learn more about the system and really try to market it much more than we have in the past. And so it's being developed from a grant that we got in Madison, but it's going to be used system-wide. So we're really looking forward to being able to get the word out more. We have a website, we have a social media page, and things like that as well.
Many of your clients are older and they don't use those items. So my next question is, how will you promote it to the senior citizens who are not as adept with the technology?
Yeah, I would say that, a lot of the people that we're in contact with are the people who know the people who need our services. And so that's the medical community. And, for example, our partnership with the Shelter Workshop, we've worked closely with the Bread of Life, for example, and, various different organizations like that can help us spread the word.
what about housing areas for the aged elderly?
Yeah, we
Or
probably
nursing
could
homes?
increase our efforts there.
Okay, just
Yeah.
trying to help.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. A few years ago, I did go out to the various different housing complexes and things like that, but I think it's time to do it again for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It states on here that it's a car only.
That's catch a ride. Car is just short for catch a ride. I'm sorry, you shouldn't have
Okay.
gotten a letter that had all the information about us as an area agency on aging. It gave the impression that you're supporting a lot of services when it's just catch a ride. You normally get a slightly different version of this letter, so I apologize if that
Is that a
confused you.
van?
We actually have, typically the vehicles that are used in this area are small transit vehicles. So they're up to 8 passengers and 2 wheelchairs. There are 2 routes that are sort of staged here and regularly serve this area all day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. But you're also receiving service from other counties as well, and those could potentially be minivans and things like that. Our vehicles have been another struggle over the last few years. So for example, starting in 2020, our vehicle orders were completely canceled for 3 years in a row. And the price for a small transit van went from $54,000 to $116,000. And we also have to come up with 20% match for those vehicles. I don't believe that we've ever come to the city and asked for that match. We usually try to stick with operations for our requests from the local governments. And then we try to go to community foundations or find other types of grants and things like that that help us to actually purchase the vehicles. So I don't know that you ever see that, but just so that you know, that's been another pain point. And we've been forced to consider downsizing our fleet because of that in a lot of the areas, but here, because of the contracts that we have with DSI, this is one of the areas where we do actually fill seats at certain times of the day because of the groups of people that we're getting to and from, on a daily basis, where that's not necessarily the case throughout the rural service area that we have. They're just, in rural public transit, are not groups of people going to and from the same place at any one given time of the day. So it is by nature a somewhat inefficient system, I guess. We do our best to try to schedule people at the same time and fill seats as best we can, but it also depends on what requests come, and it's a sort of a first come, first serve basis. So we do what we can. So like I said, you're getting service that is coming out of other counties. We actually also manage a service for Margaret Mary Health called Margaret Mary Health Rides, and it's kind of over and back from this area quite a bit as well. And so yeah, it's kind of a mixture, although the ones that are generally staged here are the small transit vans.
In the year that your annual report covered here, did you receive any other funding from organizations in Decatur County?
So we do receive funding from the United Fund. I want to say off the top of my head that was like $14,000. Don't hold me to that, but I believe that's what it was last year. We receive, I think, $10,000 from the county. And then, like I said, we have other revenue from Medicaid and things like that. And then we generally try for a grant on an annual basis for funding from Thrive Alliance. Because as an area agency on aging in our other counties where we're allowed to utilize those funds, we take some of our aging funds and we put it into transportation. But I don't have that luxury in Decatur because those funds are targeted to our 5 counties as an area agency on aging. But because Thrive Alliance has similar funding, we try to go to them for about $10,000 a year as well.
Do you have any idea what other municipalities have done? Greendale, Lawrenceburg?
Yeah, Dearborn County is a little bit unique because we receive revenue sharing directly in Dearborn County, but man, I usually have a list, but I really only have it for Decatur in front of me at this moment. 5,000 is definitely on the lower end for a lot of the other municipalities that are supporting us.
You provide your full list of services in those communities, though, or is that?
That is correct. Yes. Yeah. Catch a Ride is the biggest, most expensive, and with 100% match though, I will say. So, you know, we do have a variety of other funding sources that have various requirements for match and things like that, but we also have, you know, sort of other sources to meet some of those from time to time, whereas Catch a Ride is really the key one that is, you know, a bit more of a struggle to come up with.
Do we have this budgeted?
We do, in that we don't traditionally support nonprofit agencies that are not quasi-government. Public transportation is a quasi-government type endeavor. So historically, to Aaron's point, we have committed $5,000 to this, and it comes from sort of just the general line item in the budget. It's not a specific, but if the council wishes to do something else within reason, then that would be doable.
So your total revenue, according to this sheet, is $7,230,143. What?
That's as an entire agency.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're getting a match on that? How much of that is you getting a match on?
I hesitate to comment on, because that number has so much mixed in with it, because we do housing, we do all of our aging services, we do Catch a Ride, we do, you know, that's really difficult for me to like give you a number on, you know what I mean, that specific number. I would need to look at like Catch a Ride's, you know, budget alone. And here in this county, the budget is about $360,000, so our request is a little under 3% of that.
The only thing we're taking advantage of is Catch a Ride. Is that correct?
Correct. And that's the budget for Catch a Ride alone.
Do you have any
Yep.
statistics on the
In this county.
125 clients? How many of those live in the county versus how many live in the city?
Yeah, I printed out a list of stats that I was going to bring, and then I left it on the printer, which is useful. But it was about 97% were actually residents of Greensburg as opposed to other areas of the county. And there was about 3%, between 2 and 3% that was coming from Westport for whatever reason. Seemed to be the other big area. Not big, but the only other area that really even.
You said 7,200, did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how many trips we used for those 125 clients?
About 7,200 trips in 2023.
From this county?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And 97% of those were Greensburg residents.
You have any idea on miles traveled?
Not off the top of my head, but we do track that. We track a ton of statistics. So we track not only, you know, we track where people are going, what the purpose was, who funded the trip. So for example, if it was a Medicaid trip, or if it was a self-funded trip, or if there's some sort of other third party that's paying for the trip, like DSI, for example. We track various different demographic, male, female, age, you know, we track all kinds of different stats. And it was interesting because if we look at the clients lost throughout COVID, we thought it was going to be more older adults. It was actually adults under 60 for employment. And so I have to believe that that's potentially because a lot more people are working remotely now. We actually did a survey. This has been a couple of years ago now, but we did a survey at one point to try to find out, you know, where do people go? What are they utilizing now that's keeping our trips low? And it wasn't, just per these survey results. We suspected that maybe people were utilizing like delivery groceries and delivery prescriptions and things like that, but of the people who responded, that did not seem to be the case. It actually seemed more that they were just relying on friends and family because they were, you know, nervous to utilize public transit. I think a lot of the people that we transport are those who are most vulnerable, and I think they're just a bit nervous, and that's part of this PR campaign too, is like, we don't want people sitting at home and, you know, being socially isolated or not staying active and being, thriving, involved members of the community. And so that's kind of part of this PR campaign in my mind that I want to try to address with people, is to try to encourage them to get back out there. Throughout COVID, we did as much as we possibly could to ensure people's safety, requiring masks. At the height of it, we even restricted our services to only medical appointments and sort of the greatest need for a short period of time, not long, but, and we switched from, passengers handing cash to the drivers to we now have a fare box so that we're not passing back and forth the money. We put up barriers behind the drivers. We increased our cleaning efforts. There were lots of things that we were doing throughout that time to try to help people, stay safe, basically. So.
Is this something we need an answer on tonight, or is it something we can work on when we work on our budget?
I don't think you're not required to have an answer tonight, but it's also, I don't think, something that is a specific line item in the budget process either. It's up to the council if somebody wants to make a motion, not make a motion.
I mean, I don't think it was considered when we put the budget for this year together last year, so I don't feel like it's responsible to do it this year. If we're going to do it and add it to next year's budget, then it's appropriate to talk about it during our budget season, which is coming up.
Yeah.
In my opinion, simple math said we're giving 150 trips per week to people, and she mentioned some of these are depending on this ride to get to work. We don't have public transportation other than maybe some Ubers in this town, and I think it becomes kind of our responsibility to provide that as a city. When you look at bigger cities, they've got big buses, and the cities contribute to that hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm not saying $10,000 is a drop in the bucket, but I think it's money well spent. Just my opinion.
I would like to share a couple more things, if you don't mind. So when I came into Catch a Ride about 12 years ago, we were operating on pen and paper and two-way radios. And so, every single change that happened throughout the day, we had to call the driver, they had to make an arrow insert here, that sort of thing. And since then, we now have tablets that allow us to communicate directly with dispatch in real time. So anytime we take a trip off, they'll hear like a little noise and it turns red and they accept it, comes off. Anytime we add something, it goes right in chronological order. The drivers have, at the touch of a button, turn-by-turn directions, and it automatically knows where they are and where they're going, so it doesn't require them to type anything in, look anything up, anything like that. But it also allows us to have real-time visibility of where drivers are at any time, and if they're running behind or something like that. So sometimes I'll hear somebody say, oh well, Catch a Ride didn't show up, and now we're able to actually go back and say, well, hold on a minute, I can see the breadcrumbs and I can see we were there, and I can, so we just, it's a far more efficient system than it was many years ago. And that's another thing for this PR campaign, is that we want to really dispel some myths and some things that maybe were true 10 years ago that aren't true now. And I think that our system has come a long way as well, just for what that's worth.
How many years have we been supporting at the $5,000 level?
I have it back to 2015, just is what is in front of me, so.
Sounds about right. I think that's.
I'm sure that it's longer than that, that's just all my report has.
Catch a Ride came around about then.
It's gotta be, I started in 2012, and I know you guys were supporting us at that time, so, it's been around for quite a while.
I've gone one at a time.
I wish I could tell you the number, but I can't, but, it's quite a while.
If you're looking for a motion, I'll make a motion that we contribute $10,000 to Catch a Ride.
And I will second that motion.
Okay. Motion's been made by Darrell, seconded by Rodney. Any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Mark and Jamie were the nays. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, I appreciate your support.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening. Okay, Amy, you have ordinance 24-13, additional appropriations.
So as the airport closes out, or finishes their first project, we're paying down the Jackson County Bank loan. We've got a couple of closeouts on 2 of the grants that are coming in, and I went back into some of the reimbursements to make sure that they had all been put back into where they were paid out of, and I did find a few that were receipted into the wrong fund. So I, in an effort to put it towards the Jackson County Bank loan, I have to do an additional appropriation out of that fund so I can cut a check to put it toward the loan, which is where it should have gone to in the first place. So that additional appropriation should have gone to the Jackson County Bank loan in that fund, but it was receipted, and this was back in 2020, it was receipted into their operational fund. And so the State Board of Accounts approved way of correcting this is to do an additional appropriation so I can cut that check and put it toward the loan.
How much is in their operational fund?
Total, around $353,000 and change, off the top of my head.
After this,
No, that's before this.
Before this, okay.
Yes.
And then just for point of information too, there's another one that we will have to do
There-
later, but it's.
Yes, there were 2 additional ones that I did find after I had sent in the additional appropriation to the newspaper, and they could not get it changed to have that total. The 2 additional ones are about $23,000.
So that'll be at a later date. It's in addition to this.
So they've been operating, basically thinking they had a lot more money in an operational fund than they really had.
That's correct.
Yep.
I'll make a motion, we pass 2024-13 on the first reading.
Second.
Motion's been made by Jamie, second by Daryl. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
You can't suspend the rules on that one, I think.
Do not think so. Okay, Jamie, do you want to give us an update from the Board of Works, please?
We opened basically bid applications for the CCMG grant project for Washington Street on the square. We basically had 3 bids, and we conditionally accepted the one from Shooty Excavating for the project, which was going to be about $2,914,400.05. So 5 cents really. Then it just kills me why you don't just take the cents off at that point, at that number. But anyway, no other old business. We got the same update on the street department and fire station. We got an update, approved some road closures for On Eagle's Wings 5K coming up. Zeke Smith came and talked to us about, we approved a contract with Burke Engineering for as needed on stormwater. We approved a change order on Vine Street and approved an amendment number 1 task order for Vine Street as well, which was stranded for the engineering work they did. And then Zach gave an update on the Franklin Street project, which is going well. He just does not want to commit that it will be done ahead of schedule.
Any questions for Jamie on that? Mark, Main Street?
Market to meal tickets are on sale. They can be purchased online or coming in to see Allie here at the City Hall. The Friends of Fred was a huge success, and we appreciated partnering with the summer concert series. Farmers Market is going well. Vendors are a little bit down, but they seem to be happy with what they are able to sell. The Design Committee is releasing an interior renovation grant and the marketing materials to downtown merchants. This will be for the first cycle of funding.
The great part about that is they received a grant from Honda North America, and then our local redevelopment commission matched those dollars as well. So they'll have about $50,000 to put towards grants for interior projects. So that's a great partnership that's happening. Anything else? Perfect. Don't think we had a plan commission meeting. Rodney, anything from 911?
Yes. The board was brought up to date on the hiring and current open positions. The 2025 annual budget was discussed and approved. The different agencies were involved in an emergency response to a missing child, and that process was very positive. The child was found. At this meeting, they did an evaluation of how they responded to the response to be sure that they, if there's any changes they need to make, if there be a problem in the future. That was very enlightening. There was also a lengthy discussion regarding which county entity is responsible for the proper addressing of all mapping entries into the 911 system so that the proper place is found. And the problem is, and I found this out at the meeting, there are at least 3 different systems, and the house never moves, but they've got 3 different addresses. So there has to be some conversation amongst those 3 systems to figure out which one they're going to permanently keep and only use that particular system. How did I do with that, Chief? Okay, thank you. That was the conclusion of the meeting.
Daryl, with the EDC?
Yeah, at the last meeting,
Oh, that Daryl.
yeah,
I knew this was gonna happen, Daryl.
yeah, it's just starting in it.
My brother Daryl, my other brother Daryl.
We had an update from Charlie Gilman and his partner on the Liberty Lakes. Probably 15, 20 minutes just talking about the process there, and he was very excited about the project, and thinks things are going along well. I think the other big thing is the annual meeting for the EDC is coming up on July the 18th. Where's that at, Brian? Right here? At what time? Lunch?
It's 11 to 1.
11 to 1, yeah. So I think that's the 2 main things that I had.
Anything else from your perspective?
Not so much. We did, Emma Lovell was hired, I don't know if I said that last month, but to replace Jess Parker in the office, so come by and say hi.
Now it's Vietta's turn, Daryl. Anything?
They're working on getting bids for the tire disposal for Toxaway Day. That's a big thing. We usually get lots and lots of tires, and they haven't come to a conclusion yet. But I just wanted to get a heads up that there's probably it's gonna come down to a limit to where you can only dispose of a certain amount of tires, and they could be imposing fees, and for like overages, if you bring more than what you could pay a fee for that, and it could even come down to where you would actually have a fee to dispose of the tires altogether. But it's still in the works, so she's wanting to get it buttoned up so she can put the notice out and let everybody know what the tire policy is going to be.
Toxaway Day will be September 7th this year. Anything else? Daryl? Redevelopment Commission.
Okay, we had our meeting last evening, and we talked about the new apartment complex that's going to be built on the old jail property. The deed has been transferred from the county to the city, or paperwork has been submitted. We just have to get it filed at the courthouse. And on the 18th of June, there was a meeting between Ironman and the commission and Zach, and they came to a lot of decisions, talking about what we need, what's going to happen. Parking concerns were addressed, but that has not yet been finalized. The city attorney and Veritas are working with Iron Men to finalize a contract for that project. One of the properties that's for sale out on Veterans Way has been sold. The transaction has taken place. There'll be a fitness center that'll be put up in the parcel that is right behind Harbor Freight, right behind Harbor Freight. And then finally, the Liberty Lakes, we anticipate ground to be broke on the houses to be started to be built in September. Right now, they're working, as you can see, there's a lot of activity going on out there, storm sewers and things of that sort, infrastructure. And the plan is to start off with 20 properties, and those properties will have infrastructure to them sometime in September. There's been a couple of contractors that have been, should I say, hired or are interested in building.
The developer has partnered, maybe,
That's the word I was looking for.
a couple different builders.
Yes.
But I think if you want to bring your own builder, that would be amenable to them as well, is my understanding.
Zach, did I forget anything?
You got it.
Okay.
I just want to commend the water team over the last month. We've had, what did we have in 1 week? Eight water main breaks and leaks that they've fixed from anywhere at midnight to 1 in the afternoon. So many thanks to them, much appreciated. They did a lot of good work for us, worked a lot of overtime. So thank you to Rick's team and making sure that all got put back together. I do want to probably get on people's calendars now for our budget workshop. I think August 5th or 7th would make the most sense. That will be before our August meeting. I don't think we necessarily have to approve it on first reading at our August meeting, but that way we'll have time to get a second one in should we choose so. Does anybody have strong preferences?
What'd you say?
August 5th or 7th?
And that's an evening meeting, correct?
It will be 5:30
to whenever.
Our consensus on Board of Works, what they wanted. Did they?
Board of Works does not attend our budget workshops.
I'd be okay with Monday, or if we had to do Wednesday, then I could do.
Usually fine for me.
Going once, twice? Okay.
5:30.
Yep, we'll do 5:30 on August 5th. It is my intention to get you all the first copy of the draft budget before or on July 19th. So that will give you 2 full weeks of review. And then the next item is our October meeting. We talked about this back in January, February, but I want to remind everybody we need to move that up due to the statewide AIM conference. I am proposing that we move that to Wednesday, October 2nd. That's a week ahead. That gets it out of the way before we have to leave. Amy, Kristen and I will be attending that. And then that fits between our other meetings, so is that?
That's the one with the Board of Works.
Yes.
Second works fine for me.
It's okay with that? We will get that meeting re-advertised for that time as well. Okay. That does it. Motion to adjourn? Motion's been made by Vida. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thanks, everyone. Have a great month.